Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 9th,
I agree with that.
2019 City Council meeting. First order of business would be roll call.
Bartlett,
Here.
Boersma,
Here.
Caravello,
Here.
Doom,
Here.
Hiley,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Majewski,
Here.
Reeves, here, Riley,
Here.
Schumacher.
Here.
And Hirsch and Legaki are absent and excused.
Thank you. Are there any communications from alders this evening?
I wanted to make one observation that I had over, let's see, it wasn't this week, it was last week. Just for the high caliber of the quality of the employees that are within the city. I was watching, there was one guy driving along in one of the street sweepers and that. And as he was going along, I can see that he's pulled off to the side of the road, and he did that so that he could help a motorist that was stuck in the street. So high quality employees.
Excellent. Any other communications from alders? I have one, and this comes from Alder Legaki, and she wanted everyone to know that the Obrick Garden Tour is in Stoughton this weekend, Friday and Saturday from 9 to 3. Tickets are available at obrick.com, and you can also pick them up for $15 in cash at 1814 Hildebrandt Road. And I've seen some signs out on the way here, so if anybody's interested in going that, I guess it's supposed to be a really nice event. I've never attended it. And I don't know if it's been in Stoughton before.
I don't think so. Okay, yeah. How do they transport the Obrick Garden out to Stoughton? I know that's silly. What is the nature of the event, if you know? Yeah?
We'll have to
Cool.
go on the
Trucks.
website and look.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I know a little bit about it. It's private homes, including alderperson Legakis, that have been asked by Obrick, who have extra special gardens, and it's not a small feat to be recognized by Obrick, because, you know, they have, talk about high standards, they have some pretty, you know, they have beautiful gardens. I'm sure most of you know about that. And so I think this is the first time it's ever been to Stoughton, so that's really quite an honor to showcase our little city, so.
Excellent. Alderperson Boersma?
Our street was just clogged with people preparing for it today, and because there's two places on our street that are designated sites. But I have asked a neighbor whether or not I can take her sign and put it on our yard instead, but she did not give me that permission. So.
Okay. Are there any other communications from alders? And I don't believe we have any presentations tonight. Minutes and reports are in the packet. That would take us to our public comment period. And I don't see anybody signed up. And if anybody would wish to speak to the city council, now would be a good time to do it. Any takers out there? Seeing none, we'll go right into the agenda. And the first item would be the consent agenda, which consists of 3 items. That would be council minutes, operators' licenses, and also mayor's appointment to the Tree Commission and Cemetery Board. Approval? I have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Hiley. Would anybody like anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. There is no old business. New business, RO 3, 2019, and Director Gillingham is here to walk us through this one.
Okay. First of all, I want to apologize. This was an absolute oversight on my part. We got so excited about being able to come to terms with the police department for a 2-year agreement that we had kept, or I had kept the personnel committee updated, Jamin updated as well, but failed to bring it to you guys. So both Mayor Swadley and I signed it and found that it was an oversight just recently. So that's why it's here tonight. I just wanted to give you a high-level overview as to what we changed from the prior contract. If you remember, the prior contract was a 1-year term. And the changes that we made to this one, we modified the dues deduction language to be consistent with the federal law after the United States Supreme Court ruled that mandatory dues deduction language was unconstitutional. So we made that change. We agreed to a wage increase of 3% for 2019 and 3% for 2020. It is my opinion that this is a reasonable increase given the CPI index and local wage pressures that are in place. Given the shortage of quality or qualified police officer applicants, these wage increases will help keep Stoughton competitive in retaining and attracting new police officers as changes occur. We also agreed to a 2-year term running through December 31st of 2020. So we've been, actually had this in place already for 6 months, or actually 7. And all other terms of the labor agreement remained the same, including the benefits, so nothing was changed there. So what I'm asking for is approval for the document that's already in place, and my apologies.
Are there any questions or motions to that effect?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Boersma, second by President Majewski. Any questions or comments? Alderperson Hiley?
I just want to comment that it is unfortunate that other public employees are unable to bargain for their employees' rights collectively.
Alderperson Riley?
Thank you. I second Councilperson Hiley's sentiments there. And I don't know if this, I have one curious
Sure.
about one thing. Nothing about the contract, which is, of course, fine. And that is, how many police officers do we have in the city of Stoughton that would be part of the bargaining unit?
26 total,
We have 23 total, so minus a chief, lieutenants,
and the sergeants.
sergeants, about 6, that would be...
He's got a Norwegian calculator.
18? Thank you. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I know that was kind of...
Tim, just to be clear, our sergeants are not in, our lieutenants are not in,
Okay.
and our chief.
I know that
Okay.
because I read that, but thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
No, I appreciate that. My question is, maybe you don't have the answer, of those officers, how many actually pay dues to the association? How many avail
All of them
themselves?
do.
They all do?
Yes.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. R 104, 2019 comes from the Finance Committee. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, R 104, 2019, a resolution approving the use of $100,000 in unassigned general fund balance to establish the City of Stoughton's technology fund. So based on our fund balance policy, we want to keep the unassigned general fund balance at about 20 or 25% in there, and it was at 26.83%, and it was creeping up little by little in there. So to find what to do to bring that back within the policy boundaries, one thing was to put some of that into a technology fund, of which nothing like that had existed prior. So we wanted to kind of formalize that sort of thing. It had been done piecemeal a little bit, but then, so it's in a formalized tech fund that we could fund moving forward. So, looking for a motion to approve that.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by Reeves and second by Riley. Is that what I heard? Okay. Any questions or comments? I think that was an excellent summary. Anything you want to add, Jamin?
No, I'll just comment that the technology fund itself was actually established. I don't know the exact year that it was established by the Common Council, but it was established. There was just no funding available at this point. So to relieve some of the pressures in the CIP process, we decided to use this money while we have it available. Give John Montgomery, I think he's looking at it, he can stretch this out for about the next 4 years with network upgrades and things like that. So it's just one less thing we need to worry about at this point.
Okay, thank you. Seeing or hearing no questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Resolution 105 of 2019 also comes from Finance.
All right, R 105, 2019, a resolution authorizing TID number 3 to repay $171,304 to the general fund for past transfers made, and authorizing the general fund to advance these amounts to TID number 5 and TID number 8, with the intent of reimbursing the general fund when funds are available from those TIDs. So a motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion and a second by Jensen. Anything else you want to add?
This was, well, because the transfer was made into the TID 3 to keep that moving along, and then when it had money, to put it into the other ones to help them keep moving along.
Anything else, Jamin?
No, this was kind of a funny, couple funny transactions. A number of years ago with TIF 3, they were, in accounting lingo, they were income statement transactions, so really they were being tracked in the footnotes of the TIF audit reports. The money was kind of lost along the way. We realized that TIF 3 is closing out. We did some analysis. This money is owed back to the general fund. Money would go back to the general fund, as Alder Schumacher stated. As everybody's probably aware, TIF 5 is struggling a little bit. TIF 8 is getting some feet under it, getting his legs under it, but still struggling a little bit from a cash flow perspective. So we thought, since this money's going back to the general fund, it's not needed by the general fund at this point in time, we can move it over to these TIFs and give them a little breathing room for next year's debt service.
And how are you tracking them going forward then?
We'll record this as a balance sheet transaction, so basically the cash will transfer back to the general fund. When we move it out to the TIFs, it'll show up as basically an account receivable in the general fund and a payable in the TIFs. So it'll run in perpetuity on the balance sheet until it's paid back. Whereas in the income statement, it disappears after the year closes out and just rolls into, in my old terms, retained earnings, and you lose sight of it at that point, so.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that one carries. That takes us to item number 8, which is Resolution 106 of 2019. This comes from Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you,
Looks
Your
like you have a few here.
Public Safety would like to present Resolution 106, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to issue a Class A fermented malt beverage license and a Class A intoxicating liquor license to J&S Nordic Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Cheezers. Brian Johnson, agent, located at 183 East Main Street, and I would move for approval.
Second.
A second by Alderperson Hiley.
Yep.
Alderperson Jensen.
I believe Mr. Johnson is here. Yeah, there he is. He wants to be able to sell beer and have wine tasting as well as selling wine. Or no, excuse me, selling wine, right? Yeah.
I believe, yes, the main thing that he wanted to do was sell wine.
Wine and
At Cheezers, and with that, he's able to do tastings. And then I think he wanted the option to also probably sell beer in the future as well. So he applied for a Class A liquor and beer license. This is a Class A license, so all the consumption will happen off-premise. People will buy it in the store and take it home to consume it, with the exception of a tasting.
And it sounds like a nice addition for the Cheezers, so.
Okay.
Committee approved it, 4-0.
Yep. Any questions or comments? You guys are really quiet tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Is that leftover from the weekend or what? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Resolution 107 comes from Public Safety as well. Alderperson Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Safety presents Resolution 107, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve temporary Class B retailer's license and special event license to the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce for Coffee Break Festival, and I would move for approval.
Second.
And a second by Alderperson Riley. Alderperson Jensen.
Yes. This, again, is an annual event. There were no issues that I know of, and Callie's in the audience there. She can answer questions if she feels like it.
You want to come up and promote your event?
Sorry, Callie.
Hi, thank you. I'm just here requesting the opportunity to carry on the nice tradition of the Coffee Break Festival and the Cup of Joe car show. And really the premise with this special event request is to offer any beer sales for those that wish to. It's not a main focus of the event. Really the focus that we're doing this year and always is the coffee tasting and the Cup of Joe car show. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Any questions or comments from alders? Alderperson Boersma?
I'm too quiet tonight.
Yeah, I knew it was a matter of
So
time.
I'm gonna go back on being a little less quiet about this. This is a festival that's held to encourage people for our history of coffee break, not beer break. We should really rename this thing or whatever. There are kids here. I read through through the document that we have online, and this is really, it's not directly an auspice of the city, but it certainly comes close. There were also children at this event. Every year there are children at this event, and I don't see anything in this resolution that this festival is going to adhere to best practices both at the state and at the level of the city that we have implemented. So I think they're getting a free ride on this one in terms of the fact that they're not even required to adhere to best practices. There's no fencing around this property. There's no real separation where kids are involved. They can kind of go anywhere during Coffee Break Festival. It just seems to me that it's something that, again, goes against our tradition as a city for what we have this Coffee Break Festival for. It's just not necessary. I strongly object to something that, in the auspices of the city, would allow, alcohol on premises in this kind of fashion. So I know I'm probably in the minority on this, but I will strongly object to this Coffee Break Festival, and I'll probably do it every year that I'm on council.
Any other alders have questions or comments? Alderperson Jensen?
Just a comment that said, I understand where he's coming from, and that's fine. They do use best practices. They do have, I know last year for sure but they do use best practices. They had a fence up. It was all separated from the rest of the festival. And there was just a tent, a beer tent, and it was off to the side. I believe that Nate can verify that there were no issues in any time in the past that I know of that we've allowed alcohol there. So I see no reason not to approve it. It is a family function, and I just would encourage you to approve it.
Alderperson?
I have to respond to Alderperson Jensen. I was at Coffee Break Festival, and I typically don't attend festivals where this kind of things happen, but I was at Coffee Break Festival, and people can take beer from the beer tent and walk around the whole thing where there's not fencing. They can take it out. They can be rubbing shoulders with kids. They can have, and I just think they're getting a free ride on best practices because they really don't. There's nothing in this document, as I can see, that really say that they should adhere to best practices. And I'm not sure that anybody really knows what best practices are in this city, because I think it's so convoluted that we don't mention it much. And best practices would limit the amount of beer. It would have people stay within the confines of a fence if they're drinking beer, especially when kids are present. Those are best practices. There's a number of others. There's a limit to the size of the cups. Nothing in this is in this document that I have, at least on my email tonight.
Okay.
So I think we can say they can adhere to the best practices, but if they're violating any one of these terms, they're not violating the best practices.
We can certainly provide you a copy of the city's best practices policies that we have.
I have it. I was part of helping establish that best practices policy, so I know what the best practices are. But that should be included in this document. I would amend this. I would make a motion that they follow best practices, especially at the city. So I move for a motion that they follow the best practices this year, because that's why we had best practices, and it's not stipulated in this document. And it's not for me. I know what best practices are.
Well, there's a couple different versions out there. The city does have their own. So you want to make a motion
I move that if we approve this resolution, that they follow all the best practices, especially the city.
Well, I think
I would
they're-
rather that they would follow the best
I
practices
think
of
they're
the
required
state.
to, but you're certainly welcome to make a motion.
That's what I move. I
Okay,
move
is there a
that they-
second? Anybody want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a second by Alderperson Jensen. So the motion, the amendment is up for discussion. Anybody have any thoughts about the amendment? Alderperson Riley?
Thank you. I guess would it be appropriate to have our guests speak again to that? Is that possible at this juncture, given where we are in the process?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So without having my full preparation of the city ordinances, our best practices that we're following are the ID checks. We do have the scanner that is supplied from the
Wellness
Wellness
Coalition.
Center. Thank you. You are correct in saying that there is no fencing around the park. So people, this is primarily for the car show. So those people are stationed at their cars, and if they want to have a beer or two, they're able to have a beer. But we haven't had any problems in the past with outside beer going past those car shows or past the park premise.
We've had problems at Setting My Festival in the past. And I don't want any of the repeat problems that we've had at Setting My Festival, where people will be served when they're intoxicated, where they can leave and interact with kids, hide their beer under their coats. Those kind of things have happened in the city, and that's why I think we have best practices. That's one of the reasons why we have best practices, to prevent those kind of occurrences from happening. And I've seen it myself. So I don't want the city to be, having an aura of, that we have to have beer at every festival, at every event that we have in the city. That's why I'm strenuously objecting to this plan.
All right. Attorney Dragley?
I'm not sure if I don't think I know what the best practices are. Are those written down somewhere?
They are.
Where are they?
They were put together by the chief in a public safety meeting that we attended. There were not more than one, but there's a number of things that we have agreed to adhere to, and I just don't see that document attached to this. And I think that, especially with a public situation like this, with a pretty important festival that we have in the city, that we should be requiring other places to have best practices, and not requiring these best practices to be clearly stipulated in this kind of agreement.
So, City Clerk,
Yes,
if you'll be issuing the license, do you know what these best practices are? Do you have
I
a copy
do.
of
I
them?
can list them if you would like.
I just want to make sure that people know what they are and we know what we're talking about.
I don't think that these are, they're best practices. I don't think that they're binding in any way. So basically, they have to have a licensed operator on site, which is state statute. They have to have wristbands to identify customers that are over 21. They have to have a secure perimeter, require all servers
Well,
not to consume.
that says when possible, create a
possible.
secure perimeter, so it's not clear to me whether that would be required here.
Require all servers not to consume any alcohol during their time while they're serving, and require servers to not have greater blood alcohol content of 0.04 prior to the start of serving event. Require vendors to allow food purchase into the licensed area. Non-alcoholic drinks should be priced less than the alcoholic beverages. If possible, make toilet facilities available within the secure perimeter. Limit the use of beverage signage within the beer tent area. And the licensee is responsible for the event and all alcohol sales. So reading this document, I think that the event is falling within the best practices, not only within the city, but they're following all state statutes. We did myself and the chief took a look at the application when it came in, and we just saw no issues. There were no issues at the committee level. I'll leave it at that, I guess.
We don't have a perimeter.
It says when possible, a secure perimeter. I don't know, I've never been to the event, but it sounds like the car show is kind of a makeshift perimeter in that sense.
And there has been fences around the beer sales in the past.
So there should be a perimeter around, it's my understanding, and the best practice is, at least at the state level, and I think the intention was we were going to try to follow those, is that there be a perimeter, so people, when they're drinking beer, that they have a designated area with a fence, with a perimeter, so they don't get out in the middle of the crew that's drinking coffee. They should have a perimeter. That's just what it says in these best practices. You should have a fence when you put that up. It should go around, maybe it should go around the cars, and maybe it should go around the actually place where you're serving it, but there should be something that separates this, because otherwise kids are going to be part of this, and I think it's not a good practice.
Okay. All right, Alderperson Riley and then
Thank you.
President Majewski.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm unclear about something that Alderperson Borsman was talking about here. This is not a city-sponsored event per se, correct?
Correct.
Right. And was there some distinction, Alderperson Borsman, with respect to what would be a city-sponsored and a non-city-sponsored event?
I think a festival like this, which has all the background of why we do this festival, is because it's Coffee Break Festival. We've had it for years. It's, there's this fine line of whether it's city or sponsored or not. I think it is. I think ultimately this is a city-sponsored event in a lot of ways, maybe not totally, but I think that this comes extremely close to being a city-sponsored event. It's a Chamber of Commerce. Give me a break. I mean, it's a Chamber of Commerce. And it's a Stoughton area Chamber of Commerce.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I do, thank you. But again, when you were discussing this earlier, it sounded as though you were articulating a distinction between a city-sponsored event and what is required, and a non-city-sponsored event and what is required. Am I mistaken? Is there any distinction?
Any time that we held an event where we have kids interacting with adults, we're presenting an aura of, I think that I object to. I think that a perimeter is a perimeter. I mean, we don't have a perimeter in this. It's acknowledged. I mean, you can't make a car a perimeter. That's not a perimeter. A perimeter is a fence where people should stay in the fence while they're drinking their alcohol.
Thank you.
Well, President Majewski.
I understand Alder Boersma's concerns and his history that he has had and his passion for this. However, reading the policy is that does not state that they must have a perimeter. So they are well within it. You may like to see one, and that's your interpretation. Unfortunately, that's not what the policy says. So, they're doing the best they can, and they have not had incidents in the past. I see no problem with how this has been presented.
Alderperson Hiley.
Yeah, I agree that this is all done in good faith and following the rules as stated. Part of what you were raising was that there's nothing explicitly in this form saying that they agree to follow these best practices. That might be something to take up with public safety to amend the form, perhaps.
That was my motion. My motion, which is on the table right now, is that they adhere to the policies of best practices in this particular site and event. That's my motion.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm hearing is you want them to hear the best practices, but you're not agreeing what the best practices should be in the policy.
No,
I think it's two separate issues.
we follow the city best practices policies.
Well, I
That's
think
fine.
they believe they are.
I
And I don't think that the
strenuously
best
disagree.
practices that we have in our policy are consistent with your beliefs, and I think Alderperson Hiley makes a good point. You could take it up at a upcoming public safety meeting and have them look at the best practices again.
Respectfully, we've already done that. We already have the best practice on the book, which include perimeters.
Okay. All right. So, any other, Director Gillingham?
I need a clear delineation between if this is a city event And if it's a chamber event?
It's a chamber event. They
Okay.
have their own insurance, they have their own permit and application.
Okay, so I just needed to make sure, because an
It's in
opinion
a
of it
city
being,
park.
right, with
That's-
it being a city event, you know, I have to
Right.
have the special event
Not
insurance.
a city event. It's
Okay.
a chamber event, which is membership-driven and.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
So I just want to make sure I understand where we are procedurally. So there's a motion on, to amend, the main motion was to approve the license.
Right.
The Alderperson Boersma's motion, which I believe was seconded, was, as I understand it, to require that as a condition of the approval of the license, that the applicant would be required to comply with the city-approved best practices.
Right.
There'll be a condition of approval. So that is and we have had some discussion about, maybe disagreement about what those best practices require. But I just want to make sure that that's the motion that is before you
So-
now, is the motion to amend to
Right.
include as a requirement of the issuance of this license that these conditions, that these best practices be followed.
I mean, to me, it's redundant, because if you vote no on the amendment, does that mean they don't have to follow the best practices?
Correct. It means they have a license that doesn't impose, that doesn't require those conditions be followed.
But that's part of the license.
Only things that are otherwise required by law. So if there's anything then there that is already the law, then they have to follow that. But if there's something in there that goes beyond what the law would require, that's only required by those best practices, they wouldn't have to.
No, it's clear as mud.
Yep.
And the best practices are somewhat unclear with respect to the perimeter fence. It says when possible. It doesn't say who makes that determination, how it's made, what it means to be possible. If you've got enough money, anything's possible.
Everybody have enough direction on this to know how they want to vote on the amendment? The amendment is to, how'd you word it? Basically, the motion was to
Sorry.
require that they use best practices. Is that summarizing it accurately?
I hate to do it.
So I had, the motion was to require that the event adhere to best practices.
Alderperson Riley?
Thank you. If I may, you believe that you are adhering to best practices already, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye, Capitan.
There you go.
Any opposed?
I call for a roll call vote.
Okay, so we're having a roll call on the amendment.
Boersma,
Aye.
Caravello,
Aye.
Doom,
Aye.
Hiley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Majewski,
Sure, why not?
Reeves,
Aye.
Riley,
Aye.
Schumacher,
Aye.
Bartlett.
Aye.
That motion carries 10-0.
Okay, so that takes us back to the original motion with the amendment. Any questions or comments on that? Alderperson Hiley?
I do hope there will be a coffee stout on offer.
We are trying to get that correct.
All right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Thank you. We'll see you there.
I believe the police are also going to have coffee grounds there?
We can get a
Something,
coffee
right?
grounder.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
You'll
You'll be there?
We'll
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah. Okay, item number 10 is R115 of 2019, and that's also from Public Safety.
And one more, Resolution 115, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve a temporary Class B retailer's license for a special event license for Madison Free-Wheel Bicycle for the Wisconsin Craft Cider Tasting Event, and I would move for approval.
Second.
Alderperson Jensen,
I believe this is the second year for this. They're having a,
first year.
Oh, well, they did have last year, right?
yeah, they did. So I think it's the second year for this, but it's the first year that where it's going to be sponsored by the freewheel bicycle. Let's see, going to be held at the course, yeah, okay. And I'd recommend approval.
Any questions or comments on this one? Alderperson Boersma?
Just wonder if this is an adult event, or is this a kid event, or both?
It is one that you have to buy a ticket to get in.
So are
It's
they
a 21 and
tickets
up
that
And
kids
event.
can't
it is
afford?
open to the public, so that's, I'm assuming that children could be there as well.
Okay,
It's,
so it would be my intention on this one to abstain then.
Okay, Holly has
We
a
don't
comment
know.
on this one.
so the event is actually going to be, in order to buy a ticket to the event, you have to be 21 years or older.
Okay.
So there will be no kids at the event.
That's right, yep.
You will buy a ticket, and then you'll receive a sampling cup, and then you can go from vendor to vendor to get samples of the ciders.
Okay, so then I restate what I said. I'll probably be voting in favor of this and not abstaining. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Item 11 is the consideration and possible action regarding Stafford Rosenbaum request for conflict waiver regarding the slipstream contract, and this one's coming from Attorney Dregney.
Yeah, I've been asked by the city to review the slipstream contract that you heard about at your last meeting. When I went through the file opening process at my office, I learned that one of my colleagues does legal work for Slipstream. She basically does employment law-related work for them. So that puts us in a position where we represent both clients, and I can't do that without both clients' consent. So I asked my partner to talk to Slipstream to see if they would consent, and they said they would. And so now the question for you is whether to authorize me to do the contract review for you, while my firm also represents Slipstream on other unrelated matters.
So we're looking for a motion to give him the ability to do that work.
I'll make that motion, but I have a question for Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a motion and a second by Hiley. Go ahead, Alderperson Jensen.
You do not have any contact with them whatsoever, for you personally?
I don't. I had no idea we even did anything for them, so.
Neither did they when I talked to them.
Oh, yeah.
They thought that the conflict was between them and Middleton, who was the administrator for the whole thing.
Okay.
So the person that I had been talking to wasn't aware of it either.
So I see no problem with it.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Alderperson Reeves. Everything else is coming from personnel, so Resolution 108 is the first one. Go ahead.
All right, personnel met and approved on April 1st, Resolution 108-2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve 11 Parks and Rec position descriptions: adult softball program supervisor, adult softball umpire, flag football assistant, front desk staff Troll Beach, lifeguard Troll Beach, physical literacy program assistant, rally cap t-ball assistant, Troll Beach supervisor, youth baseball and softball supervisor, youth golf assistant, and youth programs assistant. And I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Riley. You going to explain what each one of them is?
So as you can see, HR department has been very, very busy and working with the departments to review job descriptions so they reflect what people are actually doing. So essentially going forward, if you have any questions specifically, Director Gillingham is happy to answer those, I'm sure.
These actually are not reflecting what people are actually doing as a rewrite. These are brand-new position descriptions. So we identified that there were employees that did not have job descriptions, and we felt that it was very important that all of our staff, whether they're full-time, part-time, or LTs, understand what the expectations are of them. Therefore, we worked with the former recreation supervisor and came up with these job descriptions.
Thank you for that reminder.
Sorry.
No problem.
All right, any questions or comments, or anyone in particular, or all of them?
I just had one correction on the youth golf assistant. Must be upbeat and energetic, so he must be really energetic. That's right. Hyperactive would be great.
Matt, you were supposed to catch this at our
Missed it at
meeting.
personnel, sorry.
Can you just, where is it at?
It's my page, it's the youth golf assistant,
Okay.
fourth
And
one down, fourth bullet point.
energetic and energetic. I guess we're looking for an energetic person. Okay, we'll change that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So with that change,
them energy drinks.
I guess.
It's also in the other ones, youth program assistant as well.
Okay,
I'll check the other ones.
so we'll do check all. Perfect.
All right. Somebody's reading their packet, that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions, concerns, or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. R 109 of 2019, Alderperson Reeves.
All right, Resolution 109-2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve 2 updated senior center position descriptions, nutrition site manager and receptionist, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Riley, Alderperson Reeves.
So, I will let Director Gillingham remind me, these are
Yep.
updated, right?
So these actually came from the performance review. If you remember the process that you approved, it said that the employee during their performance review will review their position description with their director, and then the director and I sit down and review what the changes were to appropriately depict what the employee is doing. So these are the changes. They're minor, mainly wordsmithing in this one, in these 2, but nothing that would affect the grade level, just minor changes that better reflect what the employee's doing.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. R 110 of 2019, Alderperson Reeves.
Thank you. Resolution 110-2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the updated Director of Finance Comptroller position description with updated wording, removing risk management duties, and adding meeting attendance for City of Stoughton authorities, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Jensen. Go ahead, Lisa.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Anything to add to that?
The only thing to add is the risk management was removed because that falls back from the days when Lori was here and prior to my coming on board. So we removed the risk management, and then because of the RDA needs and other authorities, we added that meeting attendance into the position description so it, again, depicts what Jamin's responsibilities are.
All right, any questions, comments, Jamin? Anybody else?
Yeah, does this mean more meetings for me, or?
Yes, it does.
He was paying attention.
You know that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. R 111, 2019, Alderperson Reeves.
R 111-2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the updated library substitute position description, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Schumacher.
And I don't remember the specifics on this, or,
This one was just minor wording changes to match the duties. So if you look at the red line version, we were just cleaning things up. So again, no grade level change. We took the salary range out because that changes potentially yearly, and just cleaned this position description up once we had Jim on board, the director of the library.
Questions, comments? Alderperson
I'd
Boersma.
just like to make a comment, and that is that although the library board is a separate sort of entity to this, that we still, in the city, have a position that is, and we hire at the city level, but with input, actually the input is from the library to hire the position, but could you clarify that for
Yeah.
us again?
Absolutely. So the library board does the hiring, firing, and they work with me on discipline as well.
Under state statute.
Yep. And then the position description comes from the city because the city ultimately gives the authority to hire. So whether or not the funding is there. So we have position descriptions that we write for the library, and I do that in tandem with the director of the library.
So I just wanted to clarify that we're not the ones who hire, so.
Right, the city council does not do the hiring, I work with the library board.
Yeah.
And-
But often there's somebody on the interview team, right?
Absolutely, yes. And same thing, it's similar to what we do for the PFC.
Is there an agreement, does the library board agree that the city council, though, has the authority to define the job, the duties within the
Yes.
different position description, or different
Yes.
positions?
Yes.
Because that strikes me as different from what I understood. I'm not saying that's wrong,
Yeah.
I just
No, they,
wonder about that.
they have always given us the opportunity to write all of the position descriptions. And so when I came on board, I just took it over and I worked with the library board president. And we've just continued to do that for the last 5 years.
No harm, no foul.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, thank you. R112, 2019, guess who? Alderperson Reeves.
R112, 2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve 3 updated public works position descriptions: LTE Parks Seasonal Maintenance, LTE Streets Seasonal Maintenance, and Seasonal Yard Waste Site Attendant, and I so move.
I second.
Second by Alderperson Boersma. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, and I don't remember specifics on what was changed on these. Nothing major, was it? None of
These weren't
are new.
changed. The word updated needs to be struck and changed to new. These are the same thing that we had with the
These were new
LTEs within the recreation department. So these did not previously exist. That's why there's no red line copies. These are all brand new. And again, they're the LTEs that came in for the summer that need to know what their responsibilities are. The employees then sign off for all job descriptions. That's why it's important.
Okay, so the motion is updated,
The
is
word-
replaced with new,
Yep.
okay? Any questions or comments on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. R113 of 2019, does this mean you've reached your quota?
I'm there.
Is there more coming?
This is it.
Okay,
We're there.
for tonight?
For tonight.
Or for the year?
No. I got a stack.
You got a stack?
I do.
All right, you guys have been warned. Alderperson Reeves.
All right, so Resolution 113-2019, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the updated non-leadership hiring policy, and I so move, and I'm going to turn this back to you
Okay.
since I
there
clearly
a
don't have the
second?
mouth.
And I second.
I think I heard President Majewski was over here.
So the major change here that you'll find is that there was a form noted on here that we had put in the original policy. We took that form out. So when you look at the red line, that's the major content that was all lined out under section 1, and the rest is just wordsmithing. So nothing really to the policy itself changed other than the form that we were going to use, we didn't end up using.
Okay, any questions or comments? Alderperson Hiley?
Just a minor correction on page 3 under heading 2. It currently reads Leadership Contacts the Human Resources and Risk Management Director, the opening. I think that should read about the opening or something similar.
Okay, I'll get it.
Okay. Did you find it?
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments? And did you catch that, or will you forward that to Holly?
Yep.
Okay.
That's a yes, sorry.
It's okay, you're working. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Loudly.
Second by Jensen. You bet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Good night.
Well, good seeing you. Will you let me know?